So like most people call what I do like spoken word poetry or performance poetry, right? But I actually really do prefer to be called like simply a poet. And it's very weird because like I still don't actually understand what poetry is. One of the definitions that I really found of what the job of a poet is from W.H. Auden. A poem must do two things. Number one, it must be well constructed, it must be well made. And he said the second thing is a poet should say something that's so universal that everybody can ultimately agree with, generally speaking, but from a very unique perspective that after the poet has said it, everyone will be like, huh, that's actually true, and I like that. For me, like my journey as a poet started in like 2012. I wrote this poem called Unmask, and while I was writing it, I did not pay much attention to it until like maybe a year later that I actually realized it actually gave me a mission for what I want to achieve. And in it I said, do you know these voices that I hear in my head? Of people who are constantly screaming for their stories to be heard. And what I want to do as a poet is to use my pen as a shovel, kind of, to unearth everything that makes us human. I think like the topic of what makes us human or humanity is a very interesting topic to me, and I want to use my poems to kind of explore that.
Do you know who they are? These voices I hear in my head of ones who are voiceless and are desperately screaming for someone to tell their stories. Do you know? Their stories are somehow similar to mine, which is why I find delight in telling their stories. These are stories so precious that they need to be heard. But first, one must unearth these jewels from the gold mines so the miner, the digging goes on and on. With this shovel, I dig deep into the soul. Replace the you with an I, and sooner you will find that it all makes sense. If we were to believe that you and I were indeed made from the dust of the earth, with this shovel, I intend to dig deep into the soil of our souls to unearth those things that make us all human.
So from what I've seen from my own work, I feel like art is also to break people who are being falsely consoled by life, and I do that really well. Because I've had people actually come up to me after performing and they would say, wow, your poem actually made me cry. And before I used to feel very uncomfortable, with that, but now I say thank you or you're welcome. Actually, I say good. I'm glad that it actually made you cry. But I actually do want something that continues beyond, just the poem or just the poetry, and that's something I've actually quite gained from spoken word poetry because it creates like a sense of community. People can actually participate in what you're creating. Whenever I wrote my book last year, I wanted to give that opportunity as well. And like, as you can see kind of here, I left blank spaces intentionally in the book so that people can actually write their own story, write songs or paint pictures or draw inside the book, because I actually wanted them to like participate with what I was creating as well. I got a response from one person from Germany, all the way from Germany, and in the blank spaces he actually wrote his own poem. When I came across it, I was so happy because it was giving a person an opportunity to actually, express their own private world to the public as well. And I feel like that's what a poet is supposed to do. Like, I have all these ideas in my own world, and you should be able to like give people the opportunity to do the same. The people I'm trying to reach with my poetry are people who actually really hate poetry or people who have not been exposed to poetry before. It's so that I can give them the chance to be like, wow, okay, I did not know poetry can be this way. Okay, I actually kind of can dig it, right? Because if you talk to a few people that I know, the only reason that they are into poetry is because of me. And I take that very seriously, and I want to extend that to as many people as I can as well, so that they can also go ahead and tell their own stories, no matter whether they call it poetry or not. My name is Ayokunle Falomo and I'm a weaver of words. What's your craft?